Hi everyone. So basically, if you've missed the past few videos, I finished semester 1 and it ended with a critique. So basically, I hang up all my paintings that I made for that semester and then I talk about it in front of teachers and they give me feedback and critiques. And then I just had holidays. And now I'm back, and this is the first week back. And I've learned a lot discussing it last week, what they said in the critique and the advice that they gave. I totally 100% agree with and got really excited about where I wanted to go. And that's what this week is. So I come back in this video feeling excited, rejuvenated, just ready to start a new chapter in my painting style. An issue that I have a lot with my work is they're not very consistent, which is, I think, a good thing because it means that I'm exploring. I'm not staying stagnant and I'm just repeating a similar style over and over and over again. But, you know, I have 4 months of school left. That's it. So I do need to start to have some consistency. And I've kind of changed my style a lot over the years. And if you were here for like the very beginning, like for those art vlogs, I do not blame you if you weren't because the videos are terrible, but and the artwork's not so great either. If you were there for that, you know that my style has changed a lot. There was stuff like this. And then I went over to like doing stuff like this. And then just like my whole studio is just filled with these different styles. Yes, it's all portrait. Oopsies. Yes, it's all portraiture, but I need to be more consistent. So I am again going into a different style in this video. So I just wanted to give you a heads up because you didn't miss anything. I'm just a little bit flighty right now. But I do think that this could be a style that I will stick with for a long time because I will be honest, I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to be really awesome. That's a bit much, Saskia, calm down. I also just wanted to quickly mention here on the intro, if you don't follow me on Instagram and all that, you probably don't know what I'm talking about in this video in regards to this upcoming group show. I'm in a group show, guys. It's called Soft, and it's with some amazing painting students that I'm with at school, and we decided that we would create a little art show together. So it's on the 31st of July, so I'm probably posting this on Sunday and it's on the Wednesday in Australia, in Sydney. It's at the Goodspace gallery. I'll leave all the information down below if you wanted to maybe come check it out. I'll be there. There's amazing work in this show, guys. Like I'm so honored that I get to be showing my work along with these artists. I mean, it's just pretty surreal. So hope to see you there. I just wanted to mention that in here quickly, but everything will be in the description down below, and we're gonna stop showing my face and just get right to the vlog.
All right, welcome back everyone to another art school vlog. Like I said in the intro, it's the first day back at art school for this semester, and I was really excited to get going on some new painting ideas. So I went in and immediately turned on the heaters because it is so cold here in Australia. I also brought along with me some new painting panels that I primed. This one I'm holding right now is masonite that I primed, but the other ones are kind of like old paintings or some canvas panels. Oh my god, this one was for a surrealism project, and you can tell that it was quite rushed because I didn't realize I was presenting that day. So let's just cover that one up. But as you can see, everything is still set up from last week's video where I set up for the critique. So everything is still nicely hung. A lot of stuff that used to be in my studio, I moved to the studio next door, like my easel and desk and toolbox and everything. So I moved all of that back to my old studio so I can get started painting. And when I came back to my studio, I was not so pleasantly surprised that I did not clean up my palette before I left. So it's been sitting like this for 3 weeks, and I'm gonna say that it was because I didn't have enough time to clean my palette, but I know that's a straight up lie. It was pure laziness. So I pretty much just laid down some paint thinner, let that sit for a few minutes, and then come in and scrape it all off. It really was not that hard. And if you've been on my channel for a while now, you might know my process already on how I start a new painting. So I always start off with an acrylic base, and so I'm going in with some slightly different colors than I usually do. I'm going in with Payne's gray, black, and a Viridian green, and a cool yellow. And this yellow, as you can see, it was so like goopy and sticky. I will say though, my art teacher was like, grab some free paint on this day, and I grabbed a whole bunch of free paint, and it was clear that it was quite old, so the mixture inside had kind of separated at this point, so it was quite awkward to work with. And I was worried because the first thing that I'm laying down on this painting, and if it's not iCarvel or if something wrong with it, every layer on top of it I'm gonna make might be useless. So if anybody knows anything about that, can you please let me know if maybe I've potentially screwed up this whole painting on the first layer. But anyway, as you can see, I'm mixing up this lime green, and I will say that the camera doesn't pick up how cool this color is. It's such an amazing color, and I was in love as soon as I put it down. I think the camera makes it a little bit more blue toned. I have adjusted and color corrected as much as I can, but always in real life it's gonna look better in my opinion. And I'll explain a little bit about why I chose this particular color later in the video, but I pretty much just covered the entire masonite panel, and of course I painted the edges, and these edges ended up being like one of my favorite things. And I have a little thing about unpainted edges. I just think it adds so much to the painting. Like I said, it became one of my favorite things about it, just the lime green edges. It was just so cool. And something else that I wanted to try out other than colors was this cool roller thing that I bought that day, and it's for printmaking, and you've probably seen it before. It's pretty simple. It's just like a handle with this roller thing. And what I wanted to try and do with it was create different textures that doesn't come from a brush, because I think variety in my textures for the painting would look really cool and contrast really well with the portrait. So I tried multiple attempts at getting the paint even on the roller, so I painted it on and then I ended up like rolling it on. But as you can see, the table that I'm working on, it has all these bumps and ridges from the buildup of the acrylic paint, so it didn't lay evenly on the roller, which I didn't necessarily think was a bad thing. I think it helped create the variety and texture because of all these little gaps and stuff. It's gonna come out uneven on the surface, which I think is kind of cool. I don't want it to be necessarily this super even thick glob of acrylic paint. I wanted that texture and those gaps and the unevenness layering over this lime green, so I'm using like a very dark Payne's gray, so I mixed it with a bit of black and a little bit of blue to layer over, and I'm going to layer over it again and again, but there's still going to be that lime green popping through, you know? And I did not come up with this idea on my own. I got it from a very incredible artist called C. Bob Koski, and I really hope that's how you pronounce their Instagram account, but I'll obviously link it here. But they do these rose paintings, and I don't know if I can include them in the YouTube video because I don't want to get copyrighted. I don't have permission to include them or anything, but I'll just describe to you what they do. They pretty much layer the same thing as I'm doing, a lot more skillfully though, with the roller, and they carve out these roses. And I really do mean carve out. Like, it feels like that the roses were there the whole time and the person is just carving them out. It's this really, really cool technique that they're using, and they slowly build it up and then slowly render it. And that's really what I wanted to come in this semester with, this idea that the subject and background are one. I'm gonna use the background to unfold the portrait, not that there's a portrait and then I just painted a background in last. Not that that's a bad thing, but personally I want a face to emerge out of the background. So after I had some fun using the roller sketching around the portrait, I wanted to then go in and sketch in some of the actual features, and so I just went ahead and did that off camera, and then I came back and wanted to add a little bit more color, so I added these red parts into some less obvious places. I mean, yes, I'm putting it on the nose and there is usually red on the nose and the eyes and stuff, but coming, you know, off of the mouth there, making it a little bit less predictable or ideal. And I'm just going in, layering the background still on top of the portrait. Like I said, creating this sort of dialogue between the two, layering different colors and using different brush strokes and different techniques, still using the roller as well with different colors and opacity. And as I'm working on it, I'm getting the paint to be slightly thicker and thicker every time, because I do want there to be not only a visually textural difference, but also a tactility to it. So there's areas of paint that is significantly a lot thicker than others. So there's multiple different things contrasting just with the texture. And then in good old Saskia fashion, I had to go ahead and gruesome up this painting a little bit, just a little bit. I'm not going as gruesome as I used to last semester, but I am sort of making some things a little bit less ideal. And this was sort of on the last stretch of this painting where I got some really thick, dark Payne's gray, so I mixed in a little bit of black with it and some blue, and just went ahead and quite boldly put in some thicker areas of this paint so the edges build up a bit, and then warmed up the face because I still wanted to have some lifelike qualities with the colors. And with this little painting, I mean, it's really small. You can see it in comparison with my hand. I am really just treating this as almost like a little study. It's a little test to see if I could put the idea that I had in my head onto a painting, but I ended up really loving the end result, and I immediately wanted to get started on a larger piece now that I had a grasp on the techniques that I was going to use. I had this panel that had an old painting on top of it that is an acrylic, and it was going to be into an oil painting, but it just didn't end up working out. But instead of just painting over it white and not having any of the original painting shine through, I wanted to use the original painting in my new painting, because I'm never going to have this painting again, in a way, you know, like I'm always going to have a white canvas whenever I want. I want to use the opportunity to already have something that I put effort into contribute to another painting. And this is the concept that I learned from a previous painting last semester. If you remember, I painted this painting last year, and it's god awful because I really rushed it and it was not even going to be marked. So I made this painting and it had all these kind of like emoji like text things, and I had two of them, and I painted over one of them fully, like I didn't include any of the original painting underneath. And then for the second one I was like, you know, like I really should use this painting painting because I put so much effort into it, I end up doing these dark washes over it and it just shines through very subtly. And obviously this painting isn't going to be as obvious that I painted over an old painting, but I do believe that anything that you would do slightly differently at the beginning stages of a painting compared to your other paintings are going to shine through at the end. So if I have the option of painting on a surface that's not like the standard white canvases that you can buy at the store, I'm going to use that to my advantage because I'm the only person in the world that can start off with this very surface that I'm using right now. We can all start off with a white base. I may as well use a surface that's different than any other. And I would have just liked to paint the green right on top of the old painting instead of doing this white base that I did before. The original painting would have come through a lot more, but the green paint then wouldn't have glowed as much on the dark blue than on the white, so that's why I had to start off with a slightly white base. I was just saying, like, I don't want to start off with a white base and then I painted over white. That was just for the green to glow, but there is still those shapes of the original painting with the blue and the dark blue. It's just not as obvious. And of course I painted over the edges with the lime green just like I did on my study because, like I said, I really do like those lime green edges. I know I keep referencing it, but I really do like it. And because I have such an abstract base, I'm able to use the abstract painterly effects to my compositional advantage, if that's even a word. That big blob there, that was an accident, but I think it worked so well being in the bottom right hand corner, and you'll see later why that is. And just like I did in my little practice study, I'm going in with the dark Payne's gray and carving around the subject. I'm using a different reference photo, as you can see. It's not going to be a one-for-one replica of my study. I'm saying study, but it's not really a study. It's more of like a warm-up practice round, even though I really do like the painting and how it turned out. I am really glad that I did that little study because I feel like if I went immediately to trying out all these new techniques and new colors, I would have been a lot more timid and less brave in some of the mark making I would have made. I usually do studies like on my iPad, which doesn't have the same obviously texture and materiality that paint does. So I think it's a good idea for me in the future to do those little practice warm-ups, especially if I'm starting a new technique. So I'm just going in and carving out some of the darkest parts that I see in the reference photo, and my paint is relatively thick. It does have a lot of texture on it. And expose what am I listening to? Oh, the news. Boring. But even with the really small features of the face, like here I'm carving out the nose, I'm still using the roller, and the roller is quite big for the nose because I want to remain in these beginning stages as loose as possible. So if I go too soon with a very small detail brush to carve out the features of the face, I'm losing a lot of that looseness that I want, similar to the artist that I talked about before. Because this acrylic base is exactly that. It's a base. Everything I do is in preparation for my oil to go on top of. Like this part here, I'm going over that neon green paint because I know it's going to be harder for me to paint over that very bright green with my oil paint, and so I'm just toning that down a little bit so it's easier for me to paint on top of. Like everything I do is in preparation for my oil paint, and I still knew that it was too bright of a green, so I went over that with even more skin tones with just my acrylic paint. And so here, because I had done my previous study and warmed up with that, I felt quite ambitious and I still wanted the paint to be even thicker, and so I went over that with a dark Payne's gray, like almost like a black, and with really bold strokes and really thick paint. I did very dramatic stripes of the very thick paint. It helps create a very satisfying and textural contrast with the realism that I will do with the portrait. And especially you can see the top left hand corner there how thick the paint is. Like my friend came in and she was like, "Can I touch it? Is it dry yet?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course you can touch it." It allows people to like be curious about the materiality of the paint rather than just the subject alone. So I think here's a good time to actually explain what is going on in this paint, and nothing actually has to like go on. There doesn't have to be an explanation as to why there is green paint, but it does, for me at least, have some symbolic meaning and reason. I think it's kind of cool though if some of it was left unexplained or maybe interpreted differently by other people. Like I am not against people seeing it as something else, but for me, I'll just explain why and what I thought about during the holidays and why I wanted to come back with specifically these colors with this portrait. So basically, I am super inspired by this artist called Mortimer. I heard of him last semester, but I was kind of on like a different path and it was too much for me to then just completely change what I was already doing. But I was super inspired by him, and then when I completed my whole series, I spent the holidays being like, okay, what do you really want to do now? With a fresh start, what do you want to do? And I really just wanted to reference him and continuing some of the themes that he explores. So you can see his work is very dark, which has always been something that I have done. So he was a great inspiration to how darkness can be explored in other ways, and sometimes not even including portraits at all. And here just quickly, I was trying to adjust the brightness because the phone wasn't picking up the green paint at all because it's so bright. It was sort of trying to balance it out with the other colors. So I'm just letting you know that the video doesn't show exactly the true tone of the paint, but you still kind of get the gist, I guess. But anyway, back to Justin. Specifically, I want to reference the exhibition that he held called Tomorrow, and I think it was about COVID. It was quite a recent exhibition, but he used the lime green paint to explore the sort of toxicity that was in the world, I guess, at the time. And I guess I'm just taking that but exploring it in my own way with the use of the body. But again, it's totally up to interpretation. I really just wanted to source him because he's a huge inspiration to me right now. So go check him out. He has an Instagram account that I'll leave here and also link down below, as well as Catherine Bobkowski, who I was also referencing. But this is the final look at the new direction that I think I'm going in. You can see the thickness in the paint with these close-ups here. Again, this is just an acrylic base. It is a base for the oils. We are going to be rendering it a lot more in the upcoming vlogs, so stay tuned for that. I'll flash a little sneak peek. Oop, did you miss it? And don't forget about this little guy here, which I'm also going to be rendering as well, so that'll be in next week's vlog, and I hope to see you guys there. But after I was done painting, some of the other artists and I that are in the upcoming group show that I mentioned in the intro went around the area where the show is going to be hosted. So near the Lord Gladstone Hotel in Chippendale, Central Redfern area, if you're familiar with that area in Sydney. Nice. Alright. So this is it right outside the gallery, and we went in because there was currently an exhibition on. And that was the first day back at semester 1. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.